This is a Fatal 4 podcast.
Eyes forward, gamers, and prepare to shuffle those feet from side to side. It's time for Squared Circle Strafe, the premier video game podcast of the Fatal 4 Podcasting Network. I am your host, Pro Wrestling Noah, aka Noah Stewart, and it's time to talk about video games. Hello, everyone. Welcome into the show. Hope you had a great week, as always. It's been a pretty eventful week, I would say, not just in the world of video games, but like around the country, well, for various reasons, but specifically I'm talking about something not as bummer-tastic as we all know what I'm talking about. But the thing what I really want to talk about is the weather, the cold, which for most of the country I feel is like generally pretty normal. I mean, it was much colder than usual, but for Texas it was especially eventful because we had like snow. Like actual snow, not just like frozen sludge, but like powdery snow, which was interesting. And look, we all saw this coming, the cold, and the city kind of braced itself because usually when that happens, Houston is not prepared for that kind of weather. Usually it's not even so much that like we as a people are, but like our city is just straight up not built. Like the infrastructure is not built for that kind of weather. So usually when it drops below freezing, we brace for power outages. And leading up to the freeze, like I saw like interviews from news stations, because our power grid is privately owned, so they're having like interviews with the company that runs the power grid, and they're like, so have you done anything to make sure the power doesn't go out this time? And they're like saying like, oh, we've like vaguely made improvements to the power grid, and we've also improved our outage tracker app, so when the power does go out, you can have like a more accurate look at where power is coming back in the city. Like, oh, good, great. But thankfully, the power stayed on, which was A, surprising, and B, delightful. There was a ton of videos of people just having fun in the snow outside. There's not like really a great place for like us to go hang out in like a big open area around our apartment complex. So we just stayed inside mostly. But, thankfully the power was on, which meant I got to play a lot of video games and also got to make, hot cups of tea, hang out with my cats. It was great. But yeah, and like all the videos of, people using like cardboard and like luggage and street signs as sleds down the like big hill in the park we have downtown was just so fun to see. Even seeing people like with like an inner tube and then like tying the inner tube to the back of a truck and riding it down the freeway because there wasn't like any cars on the freeways because they were all frozen over. And none of our cars here have, the capacity to drive in snow, really. Just a lot of really bizarre, fun stuff coming out of, the most recent snow freeze situation, which is usually not how that goes. So it was a nice change of pace. But like I said, I got to, because, the city basically shut down for about 2 days there. Like people weren't going to work and stuff, or people were like working from home mostly. But my job requires me to be at the office, so I pretty much got 2 days off, which means I got to play a lot of video games. So I'll get to tell you about that later in the show. But for now, why don't we get into the news? Because folks, it was also a pretty big news week for video games. Most notably, we got another little showcase, this time in the form of the Xbox Developer Direct. And I love these Xbox Developer Directs. I think next to the like Summer Games Fest and the VGAs, like, kind of the big tentpole showcases that we get for where like the whole industry comes together to show stuff off. I think the Xbox Developer Direct is maybe like my favorite of the first party showcases, because they just have like a really intimate feeling where it's just the developers in their studios just kind of like talking about their game and like the passion they have for it. And it's also they curate them so it's not like a big like shotgun blast of games coming at you. They pick like just a handful. Like I think each developer direct is like 4 games, so you get like a nice like extended kind of like presentation of each game with the developers talking about it. So, and this time it was like some really great high quality stuff. I'm honestly very excited for all 4 of these games that came out of this developer direct. The first of which was Team Ninja was first up, talking about a new entry into the Ninja Gaiden franchise, to which they also kind of announced that 2025 would be the year of the ninja. Just a ton of Ninja Gaiden content coming our way. Previously, they announced Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, which I believe I talked about on last week's episode of the podcast, which is like a 2D kind of Metroidvania-esque Ninja Gaiden adventure. But for this Xbox Developer Direct, they have announced Ninja Gaiden 4. That's right, the next entry into the Ninja Gaiden franchise, which we haven't seen since like the PS3, Xbox 360 generation with Ninja Gaiden like Sigma 3, I think. So kind of a big deal. Like the next sequeled entry into the Ninja Gaiden franchise. And also, very notably, they are partnering up with Platinum Games. So these are like 2 like very notable action game, like character action game developers teaming up to make a game. And also Platinum Games very famously, like one of their biggest notable games that people love praising online these days especially is Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, which also stars a ninja. So I think people are really kind of putting that on this game, like, oh, like, are we getting another like Revengeance style action game, which would be so cool. Also notable is that this game does not star Ryu Hayabusa, the main character of the franchise. Instead, we have a new protagonist, Yakumo, and it's has a new setting, a kind of like cyberpunk, like neon lit city. And yeah, this is very exciting. I am very excited to see like what Platinum can bring to Team Ninja's, because like Team Ninja makes like tough as nails like action games. Like they've done the Neo franchise recently, which is the kind of Souls-like samurai game. But also Team Ninja is kind of like, when they make action games, they're kind of known for like being tough as nails, like really challenging, really hard games that aren't like the Ninja Gaiden games aren't Souls-like games, but they are still super difficult because like all the enemies there are like a ton of enemies on screen at the same time. They're all attacking you, and you have to be really aware of like what angles they're coming from and when they are open to being attacked, so that you have a window to like punish enemies who are open. But Platinum, what they bring to the table is just like really tightly tuned melee combat, and usually a lot of flashiness, a lot of character and style. So I'm very interested to see about Ninja Gaiden 4. It has a set release date for a fall 2025 window. And in that same segment, they also announced that they were shadow dropping as of the day of that direct, Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, which hit PCs and PS5 and Xbox, and is also on Xbox Game Pass. And it is, it's so Ninja Gaiden. So there's Ninja Gaiden Black was on the original Xbox a updated version of the 2004 Ninja Gaiden. It was kind of like the deluxe edition, I guess you could say. It had like additions and like even more punishing difficulty levels and stuff. And then on the Xbox 360 and PS3, they did the Sigma series. So they did like Ninja Gaiden Sigma, which was another remake of the 2004 Ninja Gaiden, but with like even more updates and additions. And then they had Ninja Gaiden 2, Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2, and Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge. So there already is Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2, but this is Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, which is an updated version of Ninja Gaiden 2. And most notably, like the big addition they've made to the game is that it runs on Unreal Engine 5. So it looks real pretty. Like all the like ray tracing and everything that, like 4K textures, everything that the Unreal Engine 5 provides. And I will be talking a little bit more about that game later because I got to play some of it. But then we got the next game was South of Midnight, which comes out on April 8th, and is that we've seen it before. It's that like deep south kind of swamp setting game. It's kind of like a character action game, and the animation is kind of like that, like on the threes, kind of like Into the Spider-Verse style animation, that kind of like stuttery, very like impactful, like framey looking animation, which is really interesting to look at. I feel like it's really gonna take some getting used to, maybe like in gameplay, as opposed to just like looking at the cutscenes or just like looking at footage of the game. But the action looks really good. A good time to be a fan of character action games, and the bosses look tremendous. Like there's a giant crocodile boss that has like a bunch of like like stuff in it, like river debris, I guess. But that it looks neat. I'm excited to see this coming out again April 8th. But a game I feel like I get more and more interested in this game every time they show it off. We've seen this game before, but this is like a big kind of info dump on it. Claire Obscure Expedition 33, which is a name that I have to keep looking up to remember. I feel like I don't, that name does not immediately recall to the top of my brain every time I think of this game. I just remember the Expedition 33 part, not the Claire Obscure part. But this game looks really neat. It's a Western developer, but it's in the style of a like old JRPGs, to the point where they made a big deal about this. It has a big overworld map, like a Final Fantasy VII style, like guy running around a big world like map, kind of like blown out. So you're like big guy running around a whole like map surface basically. And the setting for this game is also just really cool and fascinating. It's like set in the world where there's this entity that painted the number 33 on a giant obelisk and made it so that everyone over the age of 33 dies, which means that like the world that they exist in, like everyone is kind of like on a ticking clock, and whenever people turn 33, they just kind of like Thanos style just like get snapped, like turn to dust. That like provides like a really like interesting drama for characters in your party who are kind of like closer to that age, and like thinking about those kinds of things, and really kind of like racing the clock against the clock in that way. But also like it sounds so serious, and the world is kind of a like historical period French aesthetic. But then also there's like a funny little guy in your party, which is like some of the best like JRPG tropes. Think like, like a Kate Sith or something. There's this guy's like a big inflatable balloon guy that you can like ride on top of and have him like fly you around the overworld map. It looks delightful. And the combat looks very like dynamic and stylish. It's kind of got that like, action command thing of like maybe a Mario Party, or like, honestly, I was getting a lot of, if people remember Shadow Hearts from the PS2, I reminded very strongly of that. But yeah, definitely keeping a eye out for this game when it comes out on April 24th. And then this is the big one, folks. We got a look at Doom: The Dark Ages from id Software. They're touting it as a prequel, like an official prequel to the 2016 Doom, saying that the events of Doom: The Dark Ages leads directly into the like opening of Doom 2016, where the Doomslayer is like on like that altar where like, like the demons are like praying to it and stuff, and like all the acolytes. The opening to Doom 2016 is so good. So they're saying that Doom 2016 was run and gun style combat, and then Doom Eternal was more like jumping and like platforming. And also from what, like, I haven't played Eternal, forgive me. I'm actually planning on playing it soon so I can get ready for Doom: The Dark Ages. But I've also heard that the combat was very like almost like a puzzle. Like you would have enemies, and you would have to use specific weapons to take out specific enemies, kind of like a rock paper scissors kind of situation. But the combat was like very like elevated and jumping around and grappling. So for Doom: The Dark Ages, they are kind of doing a 180 and saying that it's going to be way like much more grounded combat. They're saying like boots on the ground style combat, where you are like a big reinforced tank of a Doomslayer, and you have a saw shield, which is a shield that has like serrated edges on the side, and you have a big like Morningstar mace. The combat will we have parries now. Doom with parries, parry windows. Like doing blocks and parries with the saw shield, and then punishing with the mace. But also there's guns. We got, I think they're touting a double pulse rifle, like a shotgun, but a pulse rifle. Looks very cool, and I'm just sure like the really sick BFG will be in this game, whatever that ends up being. And that the levels will be more like big open areas instead of like going down hallways and stuff that Doom usually is. These will be like really big open areas where you'll run into mobs of enemies and kind of tackle objectives kind of like one after the other in these big open areas. Very cool, like doom and gloom kind of like Doom kind of always looks like a metal cover, but this especially looks like, like a classic, like 80s black metal cover. Just a lot of like, Viking iconography and like gray, like mountainous areas, very dark. It looks really neat. So that is coming May 15th, it's coming sooner than I thought. I thought for sure that this was maybe like, I think we first saw this game at last year's Summer Game Fest, so I thought that this maybe had a little bit more time to cook, but it's coming soon. So very excited for Doom: The Dark Ages. And all of these games that I talked about are coming to Game Pass. So if you have access to that, Game Pass, I feel like last year was... like the value of Game Pass was kind of put into question, but with these releases, I'm feeling pretty good about that value proposition again. I'm there's a lot to look forward to just in the next handful of months. Like all these games are kind of coming out one after the other. We got April 8th for South of Midnight, April 24th for Clair Obscur Expedition 33, and then May 15th for Doom: The Dark Ages, and then Ninja Gaiden 4 coming out in the fall. But yeah, lots of stuff to look forward to. And Yeah, that was the Xbox Developer Direct. Really, really enjoy those. Look forward to those every as like one of the first big showcases of the year. Speaking of things to look forward to, moving on to our next news bits. These bits of news brought to you by VideoGamesChronicle.com. PlayStation Productions' next movie project is a Resident Evil game, which is interesting given that, Resident Evil is a Capcom franchise, but they have apparently teamed up with PlayStation Productions to make a new Resident Evil movie, which is being directed by Zach Krager, who is was the actor and writer who helmed the 2022 horror film Barbarian, which is one of my very favorite recent horror movies. If you haven't seen Barbarian, it is excellent. Please go watch it. It is just even if you don't like horror movies, it is a wild ride that has, if you go into it blind, it has the surprises in that film are nuts. And also this guy, Zach Krieger, also has a new movie coming out in just, I think, a week. Like this weekend, a new movie Companion is coming out. Also very excited for that. But he is in line to do this new Resident Evil movie, which he is saying is going to be more grounded and kind of based off of the original Resident Evil games, which we have seen recently before with the Welcome to Raccoon City movie, which was not the most well received. I believe it was like a Netflix produced thing, but I see him saying that, and I see some people, kind of going, "Uh-oh, we've seen this before." But I have faith in Zach Krieger. I've seen his previous work, and I really liked his previous work. So I really hope that we don't get too much executive meddling in this, and that he can just really go wild and making a really good Resident Evil movie. So that'll be really cool. Then speaking of movies, the Sonic the Hedgehog 4 movie release date has been confirmed by Paramount. The next Sonic the Hedgehog movie will hit theaters in the spring of 2027, coming off the heels of the very successful Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which I assume most people have seen at this point. Man, what a delight of a movie that is, especially for people who have deep nostalgia for Sonic Adventure 2. But the new one, I've seen some details on, I think there was an interview with the director who was saying that this next one, Sonic the Hedgehog 4, will involve time travel, to which, and spoilers for Sonic the Hedgehog 3 if you haven't seen it yet, but the post-credits scene for that movie, where we see Amy make her first appearance in these movies, and hearing that the next movie will have Amy and time travel makes me think, oh baby, we're getting a Sonic CD based movie, which hits me directly in my nostalgia soft spot, because Sonic CD was the very first Sonic game that I ever got. I got it on PC instead of the Sega CD. But yeah, Sonic CD is so freaking good. And the soundtrack of that game, and every time I think of that game, I can hear the vocal delivery of whenever you hit the time travel posts and you hear the future past, oh my god, I'm so excited. These Sonic the Hedgehog movies, they're for kids, right? But they're just so delightful and fun that I was excited for Sonic the Hedgehog 3, but I don't know, maybe I'm more excited for Sonic the Hedgehog 4. I don't know, but I'm sure that'll be fun. In more disappointing news, the next game from Celeste's developer has been canceled. Extremely OK Games has canceled their next game they had in development, Earthblade, which was announced in 2001 and has been canceled due to internal development issues as well as a dispute between Celeste's creators over the rights to the IP. So big bummer there, like real, it's a shame that they couldn't, work that out. Kind of had like some personal disputes that kind of broke the game up. The developer is still staying. I believe the dispute was with like the kind of like development leaders and their co-founder who was the art director for Earthblade, and the it says the pixel and UI artist on Celeste and their previous game Towerfall. So the team is staying together. I believe the artist is maybe leaving. So they kind of have to, refigure out how to go forward in developing games. But they're saying that they are going to kind of like focus on smaller projects, kind of like get in a manner closer to how they approached Celeste and Towerfall, because Earthblade, like we got like at least a trailer for Earthblade, and it looked to be kind of like a bigger Metroidvania style game for them. So big bummer. Celeste is a indie classic at this point. And so definitely a big bummer that we won't be able to see what was going to be the big follow-up to that game. But also, like, good on Extremely OK Games for being so candid about the situation and, like, kind of getting insight into kind of like the turmoil that development and, like, indie development can have as kind of, a lesson for other developers to, see and, hopefully learn from. So yeah, bummer, but looking forward to whatever they work on next. And speaking of things, like upcoming things coming next, Phil Spencer in an interview has confirmed that Xbox will support Switch 2, which they have supported, the Switch in the past. Like I think it was last year, where they put out Pentiment and Hi-Fi Rush and Sea of Thieves and Grounded on the original Switch. So Xbox coming to Nintendo consoles is not like super earth-shattering at this point. We've kind of seen it already, but they also said like what they were going to be supporting the Switch 2 with, and the list is kind of crazy because the games that they are working on porting over is Diablo 4, Microsoft Flight Simulator, and Halo the Master Chief Collection, which just the thought of playing Halo on the Switch is kind of crazy. Like, I mean, because Halo's identity, I feel like, is so wrapped up in the aesthetics of the Xbox that even playing it like on PC feels like just a little like, oh, like I shouldn't be doing this. I'm kind of getting away with something. But the idea of playing it on a Nintendo console feels crazy. And I'm sure it'll feel especially crazy when I think there have been rumors saying that like there's maybe been some spottings of like an ESRB rating for the Halo Master Chief Collection on PlayStation 5. That'll be especially crazy because PS5, the PlayStation is kind of the direct competitor to the Xbox. So that weird times for Xbox. But be looking forward to getting my hands on Halo on the Switch. That'll be crazy. And then finishing off the news with a more upbeat, something I'm very excited about. The Video Game History Foundation makes its digital library available to the public next week. The library will include promotional artwork and more than 1,500 out-of-print magazines. The first public version of the library will launch on January 30th, offering digital access to some of the Foundation's exciting special collections. The news was teased with high-res images featuring Donkey Kong arcade flyer artwork and Final Fantasy VII artwork. And although it says it plans to save the details for the big premiere, the Video Game History Foundation says its library includes never-before-seen game development materials and artwork, press kits, and promo materials from iconic video games. And again, it will feature access to more than 1,500 out-of-print video game magazines, which will be fully text searchable. This is incredible. Just having official access to all of this stuff, because like there's like, you know, the Internet Archive and retro mags, like there has been access to this kind of stuff, but having like official access and like super high res scans of this material is just so cool. Again, Video Game History Foundation, I love the work they do. They have a Patreon. Please go support them if you can. They're doing incredible work. Kudos to the Video Game History Foundation. And that'll do it for the news. We are going to take a break, and when we come back, I will tell you about the tons of video games I've been playing lately. And we're back, folks, and it's time to talk about the games I've been playing. And folks, I did it. I finished a video game, and that game was Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Got to really put like the enough time into it over the snowy days, and finally finish it. Spent most of that time in the third act of the game, which I honestly don't love the exploration in that area. Most of the area is kind of like covered in water, and you have to like use a little motorboat to get around. I didn't love that part of the exploration, but I did think that that part of the game had some of the best side quests. Specifically, there's a side quest where you run into a former student of Indiana Jones's who is there on basically like an internship, like field trip, to do on like an archaeology trip with being funded by the Nazis. Like she's hanging out with the kind of like main antagonist of the game, Commander Voss. And you like run into her as she's like kind of like already in a temple, and you kind of like go do the temple run with her. And let's just say it doesn't end up very well for her, but I really liked like kind of like how fleshed out that story was in that side quest. There's also another one where you like meet and have to go save a character's nephew who is obsessed with archaeology. That one's really fun too. Just this is a really good video game, especially if you love Indiana Jones. Please check this game out. It captures everything about Indiana Jones so well. Especially, oh my god, the finale to this game is insane. It is like jaw on the floor, like holy shit, what are we even doing here kind of stuff. And also very to Indiana Jones, style, where the kind of like main set piece at the end is very biblical in nature, like a Ark of the Covenant style revelation, but also something that I feel like you could really only pull off in a video game. Like I don't necessarily know if you could pull something like this off in a movie without it looking really goofy. But yeah, the end of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is just so cuckoo bananas. I loved it. I loved it so much. And also, just the way that Machine Games is so good at, and I think I said this last time I talked about Indiana Jones, but they're just so good at making games where you fuck up Nazis, because they did the previous Wolfenstein games, and they're specifically what they're so good at is portraying Nazis as just like these just like pathetic men who have found themselves in places of power. And like even like the game here has like a character like even spelled out so much as that like these guys are so easy to manipulate because their egos are so fragile, which that is such a great piece of writing and very pertinent to our times. But yeah, the main antagonist, Commander Voss, you have like a encounter with him at the very end that is just so cool and crazy, man. Oh, this game, you have to, if you aren't planning on playing this game, at least just like look it up on YouTube. It is so nuts. I'm looking forward to talking about it. Maybe at the end of the year in some kind of spoiler capacity. But man, Indiana Jones is the Great Circle. One, if I want to say that I want it to be eligible for like Game of the Year discussions for this year because it came out like the first week of December, which was not enough time for me to play it to consider for Game of the Year stuff, which I do still plan on doing like a little bit Game of the Year thing for 2024. I've just, again, I'm recording this episode at like 10 o'clock at night. Still trying to find time to work, make these episodes. But I do want to do a little something for that. Even if it's like a little like bonus something that I put out. But yeah, Indiana Jones, Great Circle, great game. Go play it. And something else that I played was Lonely Island's Snow Riders. This hit Game Pass last week. And this is a sequel to their previous game, Lonely Mountains Downhill, which was a kind of like mountain biking game where it's like isometric and it is like less focused on like tricks and stunts and more just directing, like direct control steering a bike down a hill and trying not to crash into mountain obstacles like trees and big rocks and stuff, and doing it like in an efficient amount of time and without like crashing into stuff. And I played a decent amount of Downhill, but I didn't finish it. And I'm kind of getting the same vibes from Snow Riders, which is a very similar concept, but skiing instead of biking. And I think in concept, this seems like a game that I would love. Like, I want to like this game so bad, but there's just something about the perspective of the game. And like, it's isometric, but a lot of the times the camera will be in such a way that you are propelling yourself hopefully very fast down these mountains, and the camera is in such a way that it's really hard to see like what is coming next. Like sometimes you'll be coming like toward the camera and like at an angle so you can't see like where the next turn is coming, like very like Crash Bandicoot in some ways, but also in a way that you have to like really memorize the track, but in such a way that you really kind of have no hope at having a successful run on your first go. So I don't know. It's a game that I want to love so bad, but it's, maybe I need to spend a little more time with Snow Riders to see if there's anything that it offers me, but not the biggest fan of my, first couple play sessions. But I also went back into the backlog, dug out something a little older, PlayStation 2, actually. I went and played Onimusha Warlords, the first entry into the Onimusha franchise. And the reason why I went back specifically is because MinMax, one of my favorite, indie games press outlets, is doing their deepest dive, which is kind of like their video game book club on Onimusha Warlords. So I decided to kind of follow along with them for that. And Onimusha is a game that I've always meant to go back and play. And it's also timely because they announced at the VGAs that new Onimusha game that Capcom is working on. And Onimusha is interesting because it was at a time that Capcom was really obsessed with the kind of Resident Evil template of game where it is a tank controlled character in pre-rendered backgrounds where you fight like undead creatures, but where Resident Evil is, dudes with guns shooting zombies, and Dino Crisis is dudes shooting guns at zombie dinosaurs, and all the various other Resident Evil likes of the time. Onimusha is a samurai game, and it's all like mostly melee combat. Like you get a bow and arrow later in the game, but it is like straight up just like hitting dudes with swords, but with tank controls, which doesn't sound amazing, but like how deliberate the combat is, I think it like really works. And there's also the like soul sucking part of it too, where every time you fell an enemy, it spits out souls that kind of float around, and you have to like stop and hit the circle button to absorb them into your little gauntlet that gives you more power to do the like magic attack moves that do like tons of damage, or get currency basically to upgrade your equipment, like your sword and your magic abilities and stuff. And it's also very Resident Evil in that you are doing little environment puzzles, like, oh, this door needs a key, go find the key, or this door needs 2 pieces of a puzzle that you need to go find and insert into the hole. So it's so interesting seeing these Resident Evil ideas grafted onto a game that has melee combat. But also, unlike Resident Evil, you are kind of encouraged to engage in combat whenever it's presented to you, because you get like, resources out of it. Unlike in Resident Evil, where every time you are encountering an enemy, you are kind of making that decision of like, oh, do I stay and fight and lose resources, or do I just kind of like kite around these enemies and run away? And there is one section in Onimusha Warlords that kind of does that, where you take control of a different character that does not have access to those resources, so you are more incentivized, and you have like less health too, so you're kind of incentivized to run away. It kind of hit me halfway through that section. I was like, oh, I shouldn't be fighting these guys because I am not getting anything out of it, and I am like in danger of taking more damage as these guys are kind of surrounding me. So I'm about halfway through it. It's not that long. I think How Long to Beat has it at about 4.5 hours. I think I'm at about 3, but I think I'm maybe taking a little longer than I should because some of the puzzles are, PS2 survival horror style puzzles that can be a little frustrating. Definitely found myself like getting lost in some of the environments. But ultimately I'm having a good time. I think that game has aged pretty well. I'm playing the original PS2 version, not the enhanced HD version that they put out on Steam, which that version looks pretty good too. But I thought about getting that version so I could play it on Steam Deck, but apparently it runs like poo-poo on the Steam Deck. So I just decided to play it in a different way that is the original. PS2 version. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. But speaking of dudes hitting guys with swords, I also tried the new hot release Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. I got to play it on Game Pass, and boy oh boy is this game pretty, and boy oh boy is this game hard and difficult. So I actually also, before playing Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, I went back and booted up Ninja Gaiden Sigma, because I do remember playing the original Ninja Gaiden and not getting that far because it is very hard. And I played about, I want to say like maybe 2 hours of Ninja Gaiden Sigma, which is, as I said before, the remake of the 2004 Ninja Gaiden. And that game's still really hard. That game's still really, really hard. I think I got as far as people who have played Ninja Gaiden, about as far as the like flaming horse boss, which I think is where most people hit a wall in that game and kind of decide whether or not they're going to keep playing, which I kind of hit that wall and decided, you know what, I'm just going to go try out that new one that just dropped. So yeah, Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, very much more bloody than the original Ninja Gaiden. Like, you chop dudes in half and like blood goes everywhere in Ninja Gaiden 2. And also the like a updated thing from the first game that I think is really neat is that it has a dismemberment system. Where you like chop dudes like arms or legs off, and they keep fighting you. Like, they still keep like trying to get toward you, and if they get themselves on you, they'll like unalive bomb themselves and blow up. So you kind of have to like deal with them before that happens, but you can do that by hitting like the heavy attack next to them, and it goes into a like pre-scripted like anime like kind of execution kill that looks very cinematic and cool, kind of like like the glory kills from Doom. Think that way, where the action is just so overwhelming that you kind of welcome those canned animations as kind of like a respite from the onslaught of action. Because I think you also get iframes during that time, so if like dudes were about to jump on you, you kind of get like some invincibility in that moment where you're doing the scripted kill. But yeah, again, game looks real pretty. I played about an hour of it. So I played through the first section where you're fighting, I think it's the Spider Clan. So there's there's this guy that has like his helmet hood has a bunch of spider eyes, and he takes his mask off and he's like a gross spider monster, and he grows all these legs, and you fight him on top of a skyscraper. It's pretty cool. But yeah, Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. I think I'm going to keep playing it. I've been, between Onimusha and Ninja Gaiden 2 and still playing Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana on Steam Deck. I've been playing a lot of games of dudes hitting monsters with swords. So maybe move on to something a little different sometime soon here, playing like 3 different games that feel like kind of similar, even though like structurally they're a little different, because Ninja Gaiden 2 is so it's like character action game, and Onimusha is more like a deliberate survival horror game, and Ys 8 is very much a JRPG. But at the end of the day, it's all like, frenetic combat, hitting dudes with swords. I did, now that I'm thinking about it, I did for a second, because I kind of had a little bit of a Sonic the Hedgehog itch, I did go boot up the Wii version of Sonic Colors, because I had never played Sonic Colors. I really liked Sonic Generations, and I heard that Sonic Colors was kind of similar in that I want to say it was Sonic Unleashed, the Werehog one, that really introduced the kind of modern like 2D with 3D Sonic style that is very much the norm in modern Sonic the Hedgehog games right now. but Sonic Colors was a really good one of those. So played about, I think, an hour and a half of that. Pretty, digging it. But yeah, got to play a lot of games over the snowy week, and this past weekend. So hopefully get to keep playing a bunch more games in the next week, so I can tell you about games I've been playing. But why don't we take one more quick break, and when we come back, I will have a third segment for you. And we're back, and it's time for the third segment of the show. That's right, it's time for the Strafe Shuffle. And for this week's Strafe Shuffle, I thought I would go over a quick little rundown preview of video game releases in the first quarter of the year. Just like some stuff that we have firm release dates on that I am excited to get into and play. First up is a game that is coming out just this next week. Citizen Sleeper Star Wars Vector, the sequel to 2022's Citizen Sleeper, which is just, oh my gosh. That was, I think, my number 2 game of that year. I want to say it was right behind Neon White, but man, yeah, Citizen Sleeper, just an excellent kind of like tabletop style RPG where you're rolling dice and you're an android that is trying to survive under like space capitalism. Your body is like degenerating. You have to get resources to help sustain it and find community and help each other. It's a beautiful game, beautiful soundtrack. Loved the first Citizen Sleeper, and Citizen Sleeper 2 looks like a more of that, but also the first Citizen Sleeper entirely took place on one big space station, but Citizen Sleeper 2 introduces space travel, so you'll be going to different locations, and I have heard from someone who has played it on a podcast, and sounds like it's real good. Definitely looking forward to that. Gonna play that next week. And then February 5th, we have the release of Rift of the Necrodancer, which is a kind of like long-coming follow-up to Crypt of the Necrodancer, a kind of early indie hit, which was a roguelite dungeon crawler, but a rhythm game. You had to like move along to the beat to get bonuses and damage, but also like if you moved not on the beat, you would like do damage to yourself. And they also did the Cadence of Hyrule game, which was like a Crypt of the Necrodancer type game, but officially licensed through Nintendo with the Legend of Zelda franchise. And this is their next game, Rift of the Necrodancer, which this one is instead of the roguelite thing, this is more of just like a straight up rhythm game, it appears, but it's got a couple different genres of rhythm game throughout it. It's kind of like, got the rock band style, like note lane thing where like gems are falling at you and you have to hit them in time. But it also has like punch out style boss fights that are to the rhythm of music. And then it's also got rhythm heaven sections where, there's like quirky, fun, little scenes where like stuff is happening to the beat of music and you have to kind of like match it up with your little character in those scenes. So it looks like it's just going to be like a fun rhythm game. And I love rhythm games. So I'm definitely excited to check that out. Sid Meier's Civilization 7 is coming February 11th. I am not the biggest Civ guy. I played like a little bit of Civ 5, but it never really got its hooks in me. My wife is a big Civ head, and I definitely know people who are big into Civilization. So happy for them to play this next edition of it. And I believe this game will eventually be coming to the Switch too, which has the optical sensor on the Joy-Cons to kind of have that mouse control. So it'll be fascinating to see people playing Civ on the Switch in that way, because Civ was already on Switch, but you had to do like the menu driven version of it. So having access to a mouse, I'm sure, will make that game even more fun to play on that system. Then on February 13th, we have Urban Myth Dissolution Center. Urban Myth Dissolution Center, which is a like pixel art kind of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney style game, but with more focused on like paranormal investigations. It's an indie game. It looks really neat, really sharp, kind of like anime pixel aesthetic. Very interested to get into that when it comes out. Then February 18th, we have Avowed, the next game from Obsidian. This will be an Xbox release, also coming to PC. Kind of a like Skyrim style, like first person Western RPG, but I believe we'll have like a more like streamlined, kind of like smaller open world. But for people who are itching for another game like that, Obsidian makes good ones of these, and I believe it will also be set in the Pillars of Eternity universe, which is their like top down CRPG series of games. So we have that to look forward to. Also on February 18th, we have Lost Records Bloom and Rage Tape 1, which is the next game from Dontnod, the people who brought you Life is Strange. This one appears to be set at like 90s, kids on bikes kind of thing. So if you like Life is Strange, I'm sure this will scratch that same itch. Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii coming February 20th. I've played Yakuza 0, and I have not played any of the more recent like a Dragon games, but I really need to get on that. I have Yakuza Kiwami queued up on Steam, and I need to play more Yakuza games. But I also really want to play like the new ones that are, more like JRPGs and stuff. But yeah, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii looks like a lot of fun. Yakuza fans rejoice. And then February 28th, this is a big one. Monster Hunter Wilds hits February 28th, which will be a big time suck for a lot of people, I am sure. I believe they have said that it will be cross-platform, so that'll be nice for people that are on PC and people who are on PS5 can link up and go hunt monsters together. Looking forward to that one. Fragpunk comes out March 6th, which is a like deathmatch style first-person shooter with like almost like roguelike style like upgrades that you get throughout the match. So it looks like a little bit of an interesting spin on that kind of very common style of online shooter. So that looks interesting. I believe that will be coming to I think that was shown through Xbox, so that might be coming to Game Pass. I'm not quite sure. Split Fiction also coming March 6th. This is the next game from the people that brought you It Takes Two and The Way Out, and is a very similar 2-player adventure. Like a lot of platforming and action. And yeah, if you liked It Takes Two, I think that you definitely want to check this one out. And then also March 6th, big day on March 6th, we got Suikoden 1 and 2 remaster, which I think on that March 6th day, I think this is the one I'm going to be most interested in. I've always been interested in the Suikoden JRPG series, but haven't had like a great way to play them. I think 2 especially has been kind of hard to access, like in modern times. So it'd be great to finally have access to those games. I think those games are pretty big, especially 2, I think is known for having, like a party roster of, like 100 characters or something crazy like that. So big meaty experience, but I always love having a JRPG on the side to play. So maybe it'll fill that hole for me. And then March 11th, this is a really interesting one. Indie game called Wanderstop, which the interesting part is that it's from the developer of Stanley Parable and the composer of Minecraft, and is a game where you are like an adventuring hero that has kind of become jaded by the adventuring life and settles down and makes like a tavern coffee shop. It's meant to be a cozy game where you're kind of managing this like fantasy like restaurant and inn kind of place, but then also kind of like dealing with the like aftermath of having lived an adventure life. I think the developer of like the Stanley Parable who has said that this game is kind of supposed to be a exploration of like kind of the trauma of burnout in game dev. So very interested to get a look at this game. Then on March 18th, we have the second tape of Lost Records Bloom and Rage. And then March 20th, we have we have Assassin's Creed Shadows. The big Hail Mary pass from Ubisoft. This will really, with all the news that's been coming out of Ubisoft lately, this feels like a real sink or swim for them, folks. So hoping that Assassin's Creed Shadows works out for them. March 27th, we have Atomfall, which is a open world survival game made by the people that brought you Sniper Elite. So that'll be interesting because like I feel like they made a lot of different stuff during the like PS2 generation, mostly like army games, dudes with guns, and they mostly just make the Sniper Elite games lately. So it's neat to see a new IP from them in a kind of different genre. So Atomfall will be interesting to look at. I believe it's a like 1960s set area where like nuclear, like bombing had happened, and it's kind of like I would say maybe adjacent to something like Fallout, but not quite as brown. If you go to like not as quite as desolate as that. I think there's like robots and stuff running around, kind of like in Fallout, but it looks this is a survival game as opposed to the straight up kind of like CRPG ness of a Fallout. So that'll be interesting. And then also March 27th, we have the first Berserker Kazan, which is a kind of Souls-like game, very flashy looking kind of character action game from the Dungeon Fighter Online franchise, which previously they are kind of like League of Legends. They are kind of branching out into these other genre of games where like League of Legends had that like JRPG thing that they put out, and they also have their fighting game coming up, and I think they had a card game at one point. I know they have team fight tactics, so they have like the whole suite of kind of like games set in that world, supporting it. And Dungeon Fighter Online is kind of having a similar thing where they did DNF Duel, which was their like fighting game that they put out that I heard really good things about. And then this game, the first Berserker Kazan, which again is a like Souls-like, very stylish looking, kind of has that like paintbrush stroke kind of look of like Street Fighter 4. So I'm really interested to see how this turns out, because we are kind of in this like rush of Souls-like games. So we'll see if, this one can kind of stand out in that way. The art style does look really cool. So definitely keeping an eye on to see how that one performs. But that's pretty much it for the first quarter of 2025 through March. Pretty solid little lineup of games there. Definitely a lot of stuff to look forward to. So I think that'll be it for this week's episode, though. Thank you so much for listening to Squared Circle Strafe. Leave us a nice review on Apple Podcasts if you like the show. You can follow me on Blue Sky at Uzi Neon. If you want to catch more of me talking about some real nerdy stuff, you can follow the Didn't Get All of It podcast to hear me and the rest of the Fatal 4 hosts talk about the latest and greatest in professional wrestling. You can also sign up for our Patreon to get exclusive access to our Discord, as well as bonus podcast content and the satisfaction of supporting independent podcasting media. Head to patreon.com/Fatal4Pod. That's Fatal, F-O-U-R pod. Thank you again for listening, and as always, enjoy your gaming.
You've been listening to a Fatal 4 podcast. Subscribe today wherever you get your podcasts and visit fatal4pod.com for more episodes, merchandise, and info on the Patreon.